At 6 o'clock, we'll be in order. Welcome to the December 2024 meeting of the York City Zoning Hearing Board. Easy for me to say after 23 years. Zoning Hearing Board. I'm not going to take much time, but just a minute or two, because I know that there are a few people in the room who know that this business as well as I do, if not a lot better, but there are probably a couple who are new to the process, and you met our zoning officer, Monty McMillian, who is over at the side table, and you were about a week and a half ago, perhaps, before the York City Planning Commission, which considered your case or your application, and they voted up or down to recommend to the Zoning Hearing Board that we either approve what you're asking us for or not. We value the advice, the recommendation of the staff and of the Planning Commission, but we're not rubber stamps. We make up our own mind. We do the best we can. I think we enjoy saying yes to people a little bit more than we enjoy saying no, but we try to do the best we can. There are times when we have to try to carefully weigh pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages, and it isn't always easy, but we do the best we can. And I would ask anyone who might have a cell phone, which nowadays is just about everybody, to please turn it off or to vibrate. We all enjoy the William Tell Overture, but we'd rather not hear it in the middle of someone's important testimony. Our stenographer takes down a verbatim record of the proceedings, and she does a great job, but she can only take down one person at a time. So please do not speak over someone who is at the podium. And I noticed at the Planning Commission last week, there was conversation moving all around the room, and there was conversation that was missed from the tape, from the recording, and so you need to come to the podium. You need to. If you have something to distribute to the board, please do so, but don't be talking while you're doing it, because if you're more than 2 feet from a microphone, you won't be picked up. And I don't know if our TV audience is 3 people or 36 people or 300 people. But for however many are interested enough in city business to tune in, I like them to be able to hear. So I'll remind you if I need to, and also I may not be the only person in the room whose hearing is not what it used to be, and my only New Year's resolution is to try those darn hearing aids that I bought a little while back. So for my benefit at least, and like I said, there may be a few other people, please keep in mind that you're speaking to a pretty good sized room. You're not speaking to somebody next to you on a bus or a park bench. And Please speak up and speak into the microphone, but don't swallow it because that'll cause problems of a different sort. Let me introduce who we are. I've introduced by reference Monty McMillian, our zoning officer. Adam Nugent is at the left, at your left, and Blade. I believe you. Shall we? What should we do? Should we give Corey a few minutes yet? We haven't actually started a case, although we.
I don't see a reason to wait. I think we could get him. I think we could bring Blade up. I don't see a reason
Blade,
to wait.
you want to come up and, because we haven't heard anything, I was about to introduce a member of the board who's not down there. An alternate member is going to be seated on the board and will fully participate, Blade Klein. And then to my right is Nick Holman. Sina Jenkins is our vice chair. I'm Franklin Williams, currently chairing the board. Our stenographer this evening is Karen Brown. That's not unusual. What is unusual is that our solicitor, and I hope I don't, without thinking, look over and say, Andy, what should we do? Tom Lang, a colleague of our solicitor, Andy Harold, is filling in for him. What did I forget?
Swearing in.
Yep, I was going to say beside that. Would everyone who may give testimony this evening please rise? And this would include applicants. And please raise the hand of your normal use. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony that you give here this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I'm sure you all would have anyway, but we're supposed to do this. And let the record reflect that everyone has been sworn. I think we could start with case number, I believe, 34.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The first matter is case number 34-2024-Z-V, and this matter was tabled from the November hearing. The applicant is Esperanza, Hope for the Future Counseling Services, Inc., represented by attorney John Wilson of CGA Law Firm. The owner of the subject property is Ramadez Melendez of 1309 Meadow Creek Lane, Lancaster, PA 17603. The subject property is located at 203 to 205 East Philadelphia Street. Address is located in the UN1 Urban Mixed Residential Commercial District of the City of York. Applicant seeks two variances: one to allow the property to be utilized as a medical facility, a use not provided for in the UN1 district, and two, for dimensional variance to waive a variance to waive the parking requirement that one parking space per 250 square feet of gross floor area be provided. The planning staff recommend denial of both variances. The Planning Commission on November 11, 2024 approved unanimously both variances. The record before the board this evening consists of the application, narrative of the project, deed of the property, an aerial view of the subject property, a plan of the proposed project, photos of the proposed project location, and a letter from Mr. McMillian, York City zoning officer, advising the requirements of the medical facility. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, before I turn it over to Attorney Wilson, for the board's information, I provided you a packet of motions with some alterations, and one of them that the board needs to decide on at the outset is that there is a procedural issue with these two variances, in that the second variance was not on the original agenda, And so there's a question of advertising for the public to be able to weigh in and provide comment. So to cure that, there is a solution, and for the board's information, I spoke with Attorney Wilson beforehand to kind of let him know what the thinking is and what the issues are here. And basically, if the board is willing to move forward with the procedural defect, it can. What that raises is the possibility that it could be voided if someone were to appeal that down the road. The way we can correct that, if the board chooses to proceed with hearing that variance, is that if you decide to grant it, we can advertise it twice for 2 consecutive weeks. After that second week, after 30 days from that second advertisement, if no one appeals within that time period, then it's deemed accepted and can be moved forward on. If someone were to appeal, then that would be a different story. But that would procedurally cure the issue with it not being on the agenda. So if the board wanted to, we could proceed in that regard. If the board did not wish to do that, then we would have to address that in a different manner. So at the outset, would that be something the board would consider? If that would be, I don't know if you want to have any kind of conversation, or if you just feel comfortable with that, or.
I'm comfortable with that.
Shoot, absolutely.
I have a question.
Sure, Sina.
Would they have not already been notified for the first variance?
So they would have been notified for the first variance, but that's, technically you're supposed to advertise each and every variance, because someone might not have a problem with the medical facility that they're looking for, but they might have a problem with the parking issue. And so that's, you could not have public show up for the one, but maybe they would want to come out for the second. And so the advertising after the fact is a way to try and cure that, to let them know that, hey, this was another thing that came up and it needs to be addressed, and the board discussed it and decided upon it.
Okay.
So that's how that works.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question as well.
Mr. Klein.
But they were both properly advertised for the November meeting, or before it was tabled?
So my understanding was, and perhaps Attorney Wilson can correct me here, was that the second variance was not properly advertised, and it came up during the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that, and I wasn't there for that. That's my understanding. One way or the other, this solution would fix that problem.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here who is here specifically for this case?
These gentlemen are witnesses. Who will
Okay.
be testifying on behalf of the applicant in support of the application.
Okay.
But not in opposition. Let the record reflect that no public is here in opposition to this application. And so with that, if the board is willing to move forward and hear both variances, we may do so.
Okay.
Does anybody object to moving forward?
No.
Okay. Attorney Wilson.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
And you are going to call these gentlemen, are these your witnesses who just arrived?
Yes, Chairman Williams.
Okay. Would you gentlemen please stand and raise your hand that you commonly use? Do you solemnly swear that any testimony you give here this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. John.
Thank you, sir. John Wilson on behalf of the applicant Esperanza Hope for the Future of Counseling Services for Verbal Economy. I'll just use Esperanza or applicant going forward. This pertains to the property located at 203 and 205 East Philadelphia Street. As indicated, there are two primary requests. Initially, there's a use variance with respect to the property, which was a pre-existing non-conforming commercial use, and we're seeking authorization for it to be used as a medical facility, which is not permitted in this zoning district, therefore the use variance, and then a dimensional parking variance. As indicated as well, the Planning Commission reviewed this, and after minimal discussion, it was approved, both of these variances. The intent would be to call both of these gentlemen to provide some factual testimony regarding the uses, and certainly to answer any questions the board might have. Thereafter, I would provide some brief legal discussion for the requested relief, and then we would submit ourselves to the board's decision. So if we may, I would like to call first Radamus Melendez.
Spell your first and last name.
I'm sorry?
Spell your first and last name.
Radames, R-A-D-A-M-E-S. Melendez, M-E-L-E-N-D-E-Z.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Made it just in time. Good to shake your hand, Radamus.
Traffic.
Radamus, how would you describe your professional pursuits and interests? What do you do for a living?
Right now, I'm the founder and CEO of Esperanza Hope for Future Counseling Services, but I've been in mental health and work with kids and families for over 35 years. I have a master's degree in human services, and I have all my doctor's classes in human services. I've worked with every kid in central Pennsylvania. I mean, for years, I worked with, here in York, at the Susquehanna Trail, where I ran a residential program for a man named Daniel Albee. For many years, I worked for him, Dan. And so I went into the private part because I found that there was, I saw the mental health piece rising. And as I got older, I see it evolve, and I decided to go into work for a gentleman by the name of Dr. Hugh Smith, where I worked as a mental health therapist, and then I found that there was a need for kids and families to catch them before they end up in the system, to get them back acclimated into the community. So I decided to pursue and work on getting a mental health clinic. I don't specialize in drug and alcohol. I'm not doing drug and alcohol. All we do is mental health. And so I pursued, and I met with Lancaster County commissioners and the stakeholders in the Lancaster City, and they allowed me to move forward and open up Esperanza Hope for the Future Counseling Services in the city of Lancaster, and then because they thought that there was a need as we see the growth of mental health in our communities and in our nation. So, so as we speak, we have for Lancaster County, we do have 2 facilities. We got one in Lancaster on Elizabeth Avenue, and then the Columbia Borough asked us pursue one, and we opened one on downtown Columbia, where we got the support from the police department and everyone in downtown area, because there was a need for that, and we moved over here to York, where we partner with the YMCA and the York City and the state allow us to open. We have 2 satellite offices. Most of the work that we do at Esperanza is basically with kids and families. And we don't only just do the outpatient piece, which is working with families that have depression, anxiety, the whole, it's not only that, but we're also, one of the things about our program is we also can do spirituality. We can work with kids on that part too. We do spiritual counseling with the kids, which is also very much needed. So as we move through the York, if we speak about York, right now in our satellite offices, we have about, I would say over 50 families that try to come through with our partnership with the YMCA. It's a very different way of doing counseling because, for example, in Lancaster City, we just hosted a Christmas party for kids. So we do step out of our comfort zone, and we also go into the community. I think it's so important for agencies to get out and work the community and work the family. So there's a little bit of everything, I suppose. We try to do a little bit to get everybody involved. So we work very closely with the parents. We also, not only, we found ourselves working closely also with adult probation. They send their men that when they come out to work with them, trying to get them back with their families, with their kids. So we do a lot of family counseling with them. So we do a little bit of everything with that. And like I was telling, one of the things that happened is we purchased years ago, we purchased the location on East Philadelphia. It used to be a barber shop. It didn't work out. So I thought the idea was to open up a small counseling office in there. Not only just so that families can have a center where they can actually come and find, even though I appreciate And I'm the YMCA for opening the doors to us, but it's always good to be able to have families that they can have a place where they can identify. We also purchased the building next door to it. 201 was also purchased, where there's plans that we would like to just kind of, continue to work the neighborhood. So I think bringing in that type of business into the neighborhood helps revamp the neighborhood, as far as like, because when we took over the building, we've been putting money into the building to bring it up to date, get into making it look nicer, and I think it's good. There was a lot of our families, they walk to their services. So, I thought that's a great location for York, because even at the YMCA right now in our facilities that we do, families walk, because some come from shelters, and they come from broken homes. They don't have cars, so this gives them an opportunity to walk to get services.
Mr. Melendez, we're going to get into some
Oh,
of
I'm
the
sorry.
characteristics of the property, but just
Let
to
me-
button down the hatches here, how long has Esperanza been in operation?
We started in 2012. I started in the dining room of my house with my wife and I and two other people, and then we got licensed in 2014.
Okay.
So we've been over.
About a decade,
Yes,
a little over that.
yeah.
How many employees?
At this present time, I have 13 employees and 2 psychiatric doctors. One doctor is from York, which is Dr. Yvonne Constant. She was with WellSpan. And the other doctor is Dr. Charles Tita. He comes in to Lancaster every Tuesday from Washington, D.C.
And you indicated that Esperanza does have a presence in York currently at
We
the
do.
Y. Why the move?
Would you mean why the move? Because like I mentioned earlier, we do have a president right now at the YMCA, and we really appreciate it, and we don't have no intention of shutting that, but it's just that I think it would be we share the office, right? So we share the office for once a week. We share the office on Thursdays. So having our own, because they have other things that take place in that building, we use the community building just right up the street. But having our own location, our own floor, our own location, we can work out of there like Monday. Our offices we can be licensed, we can stay there till like 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, and we can come in Saturday and work at Lancaster. We're all even open on Saturday, so having our own location, we can actually be there all the time.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Melendez. A few questions about the characteristics of the property itself. Am I right in saying that you, Radamus Melendez, the individual, own the real estate at 203 and 205 East Philadelphia Street?
I do.
Okay, and this property is located in the UN1 zone of the city of York?
Yes.
And it's located at the corner of East Philadelphia and is it North Queen Street?
Yes.
Okay. Approximate size of this lot? It's less than an acre, correct?
It is.
Is it fair to say that the exterior walls of the building that improves the property are directly above the property boundary lines, meaning there's no yard?
No, it's just all concrete.
Lot is rectangular in shape,
Yes.
correct? How many stories is the building on the property?
3-story, well, we have the commercial and 2 stories.
What are the 2 stories above the commercial for?
It's, we have 2 apartments building.
So residential use?
Residential, yeah.
And you said that previously the first floor was used as a barber shop, correct?
It was a barber shop when I purchased it, they had mentioned to us that it was a barber shop for about 15 years.
And when did you purchase?
I would say about 3 years ago.
And how long was the barber shop in operation since you owned it?
It only lasted about a year only 1 year, about a
Okay.
year and a half.
Describe to me the characteristic of the neighborhood. Are there any surrounding uses that are commercial in nature, or are they all residential?
There's commercial uses all around the neighborhood.
Are there any similar uses to the one you're proposing?
I couldn't even, to be honest with you, I haven't really, I think on the other side, on the other side of the street, there is Wesley Bridge, I think. There's some outpatient facilities in the city, but on Philadelphia Street, I couldn't say.
as far as accessing the property by vehicle, and I heard you testify previously as to your clientele likely being foot traffic and public transportation perhaps. How many access points does the property have from a vehicle perspective? It can be accessed by a vehicle?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at coming down Philadelphia, or you're coming down the street down.
Okay.
I mean, you can't, so.
And
it's a
East
one-way.
Philadelphia is
East
one-way
Yes,
street?
it's one way, going down.
But
yeah.
North Queen Street, that's
North
two-way
Queen-
traffic?
Yes.
Let's talk about the proposed building layout. So talk me through what that space on the first floor that's to be used for the counseling offices, what's that look like?
As I spoke with the architects, it would be, the space would have like a waiting room. It would have 3 offices, small offices to have counseling, and a reception room. By law, I have to have a locked file room. It would have a file room. We do not keep medication in there. No medication would be kept in the building. It would have 2 bathrooms, one for the staff and one for the patient, and one bathroom is handicap accessible.
Currently, are there any parking spots available on site?
There is, I mean, my vision was, we've always, come in there when it was a barber shop, I always saw that everybody that came in either used the meters or walked. So my vision was we would continue using meters. And then we would utilize the parking garages that the city has. And since some of our, that's would be what we would use on the surrounding area.
And you have experience with other locations. You know how your clientele typically are transported or arrive at your facility. Is it your experience that it's primarily foot traffic?
Mostly, at one time, we used to, before COVID, I would provide free transportation to our clients, just to get them in from the shelters and the homes, because they didn't have no way. But after COVID, I had to stop the transportation. But what I found is they come in through public transportation or walk. And what I've noticed now in York is we're starting to get patients coming in from Hanover. We're starting to get them from outside York County. You know, so we're starting to see people coming in, even from Harrisburg, they're calling us to come in. But and it's my understanding, as I was speaking with the superintendent of York School District, that there's a huge need for this type of service.
And practically speaking, if Esperanza needed parking spaces for its clientele, it wouldn't make any sense from a business perspective not to provide that. But it's your conclusion that's not needed.
No, it's not needed. And if our patients need it, if for anything financially, we always have told patients that we would kind of provide that if they needed a meter, change to the meter, if they needed their tickets stamped at the garage, and we haven't explored that yet, but, you know, it's in the conversation, because in Columbia, downtown Columbia, we do use meters. We've been there for a while.
So both as the property owner and as the owner of Esperanza, you would request and support the operation of a medical facility on the first floor of 205 East Philadelphia Street, correct?
I would.
Does the board have any questions for this witness in particular? I think probably this witness is best equipped to answer boots on the ground, what types of services are provided, what the day-to-day looks like at this facility. And then afterwards, I do intend to briefly call witness Jose Santiago, who will speak to his experience with Esperanza at the Y.
How many staff are you looking to have there?
God permits, we'll probably have maybe about 6.
Will that be full-time, part-time?
You know, it's outpatient, so we, normally a full-time outpatient therapist would do like 32 hours because of all the paperwork that's involved in mental health. But, you know, it floats, the schedules float. We could get someone that comes in, and so, but that's the goal. Our facility would, if, right now, even with the 13 staff, if you walk right now in our facility, you'll find, like, you'll think, do people really work here? Because everybody's coming in at different, because the population, it's not what, we have to work with the population's schedules. I try to make it as comfortable as him with our population on mental health, so that they can have, so we work, that schedule just kind of flows. But hopefully we could do 6 and maybe 2 part-timers. We would like to get it going on Saturdays, because that way we don't inconvenience some of them that have jobs, that they would have to get, stop going to bring a child in to get counseling or family counseling. So hopefully, if by the grace of God, we can do 6 to 8, maybe 2 part-timers, 6 full-time.
Mr. Melendez, what do you anticipate as far as hours of operation?
We're looking at 9 to 5, and Saturdays maybe 9 to 3. But Saturdays, it would be a slow roll in, and it depends on the needs. I always look at the needs of the patients that want counseling. And we'll also be looking at the evenings. We try to, even though we say we're licensed to be open in Lancaster City from 9 to 8, and we're licensed to be open Saturdays from 9 to 7. So there's always a flow in our office. Now, me personally and some of my directors, we never have a 5 o'clock schedule. We're always out of there later.
Mr. Melendez, and I understand this is an estimate, but based on your other locations, what would you anticipate as far as the number of patients that come in and out the door on a daily basis?
At our location, if you're looking at Lancaster, at our location in Lancaster, we do about an average of 40 to 50 patients a day. We're one of the fastest growing mental health patients, outpatient programs right now in the city. We're doing over 200 patients a week on a 6-day week. We would anticipate that York, there's a huge need. I have to be honest, there is a huge need for this service in York because of the population I'm serving. So we anticipate York to be just like Lancaster. What started out, we've done over, our third, I would say we have over 750 patients right now registered in Lancaster. So there's a constant flow, but that's what, we also have our psychiatric care, which we work with that closely because it helps also. And we have which I'm going to like to explore, is we have a great relationship with Lancaster General Health Hospital, so we work directly with the hospital, so which is something we would like to do here in York, work closely with WellSpan, so we can help on the emergency side.
Does the board have any further questions for Mr. Melendez?
Yeah, I do. Couple things. You mentioned licensing. Are you already licensed here in York?
In York, we're licensed to practice anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania, or we're now working on getting a support letter from York County. We already had gotten our 2 support letters for our 2 outpatient program facilities, so we're working on that as we work on developing the building.
Okay. Second question I had was, you mentioned 2 doctors. Do they issue prescriptions?
The doctors issue prescription. They both issue prescription. But like I mentioned earlier, we don't keep no medication in the office. The patients have to go to their CVS or where their pharmacy of choice. One doctor, he writes them. The other doctor uses a computer, depending on the doctor.
The other 2 floors of your building, are they occupied right now?
They're occupied. Yeah, tenants are occupied. I own Melendez Properties, my son and I. So we have what they call realty professionals out of Quarryville, Lancaster. They run our real estate piece. So we do have it upstairs, but both apartments are occupied, and I think it's going to be good for them too, because they could probably use the services. We try to keep the rents very low there too, to help out with those families.
And my last question is, you mentioned 6 employees at this location. Where or what are you going to tell them where to park? Because I'm assuming they're not going to walk to work.
No, well, they'll probably end up using the meters, or to be honest, we'll probably end up using the city parking. And Esperanza will, as we speak, we talked about, we would probably pay for the parking for the employees. I have to work something out with the, maybe I could work some contract out with the city where we can have that, so many spaces rented out a year. But if not, we just cover the parking space for them.
Just real quick on that note, there's a parking lot just south on Queen Street. Actually, it's on Clark Avenue that the library uses. I mean, the library has a ton of people that come in and out every day, and I don't see that lot full very often. So maybe it's something that you guys can work out with them and maybe get some parking over there too. It's not far at all, half block down the street, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to work-
Even closer is, I think you could work something out with Seatown, the grocery store. right
Oh,
there.
Z-Town, yeah.
I mean, that's like a half a block of walking.
See,
That may be a good place for your patients.
that's good. Thank you for that recommendations, because I'm just learning. Even though I worked in York for over 15 years, this is the first time I've done business here like this in York. We do own apartments, buildings, and other investments in land in York, but my brother here is someone I have talked to about York. He's the York guy. But thank you.
I have a question as well. Have you received any sort of neighborhood feedback or communications from those folks?
There was only one person that I know of. She was really excited about the services. And the other feedback, and God is my witness, the patients that are coming in now are very excited that they're going to have a place where they can go if it's approved. And they're talking about telling more people to come about it. It really surprised me when I saw that we're starting to get calls from around York. You know, your other counties or your neighbors are starting to talk about it. But, I've said to, I'm also part of a ministry team because I also preach. I'm a preacher in the Catholic Church. And I was telling some people that I think this facility is going to be outgrow Lancaster because of the need that there is, how there's a huge need for this. And it was my personal experience seeing that growth at one time, because I was blessed to work with Judge Casamatis, if you worked in the juvenile justice system in York, you would know of him. He's very instrumental in working with this type of population and family. So we could see that, and when I worked with the gentleman down at Piaui, we could see the need for mental health. And I think it's going to be a blessing if this is approved for these families.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
You can be seated, and we'll call Mr. Santiago. I want to be cognizant of the board's time. We won't belabor this. Mr. Santiago, could you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
I'm Jose, Jose, Santiago, Santiago.
And I'm going to ask you the same question. How would you describe your professional pursuits and involvement in the York community?
So I'm actually the executive director at the York branch of the Y and also the community development director for the association. So I do a lot of community development along with partnering with Radimus in social services, supportive services for the community and all our tenants, which we do housing also.
Have you ever heard of Latinos Unidos of York?
Yes, I'm actually the founder, one of the founders.
And what's your position with the Y?
My Y, I'm the executive director of the York branch and community development director for the association.
Okay. Do you have any involvement with the Redevelopment Authority in York?
I do. I'm RACI. I sit on RACI. I'm one of the chair. I'm actually the second treasurer of RACI.
And what about the Housing Authority of York?
I was the chair of the Housing Authority for like 10 years, and I'm actually thinking about going back here soon.
So you know a thing or two about the city of York?
Oh, yeah. I've been here all my life.
Are you aware that there's currently a comprehensive plan that's underway here in the city?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any involvement in that?
I've had some involvement in some of the committees that were put together to talk about the plan and what needs to be done with the plan and what needs to happen in the community. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not certain what the status of the comprehensive plan is. I believe it might be in the process of obtaining final approval here, if not already been approved.
It's on its way. It's very close, I think.
They just had a viewing not too long ago, right? A couple of weeks ago, they just had a little viewing in here for it.
The reason I raise that is one of the specific focus areas, one of the 9 in the comprehensive plan, I believe is access to medical and health services, correct? And that would include mental health services. Okay. So I'm assuming that if Esperanza does get approved at this location, it would be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but your position that that would support and underscore the policy set forth in that comprehensive plan.
Most definitely.
Okay. Tell me about your affiliation with Esperanza.
So I've known Radimus probably, 25, maybe close to 30 years. And when Radimus started Esperanza, I actually was involved as one of the board members. I'm currently the chair and president of his board. And I've always wanted to have these type services in York and been battling for them for years, especially when it comes to our Latino populations and all our youth and kids. So Radimus supports all population of kids, but I know that his office specifically also really focuses a lot on supporting the Latino families also that don't speak English. So, and that's a huge need in York, huge need. As you know, the Latino population continues to grow, and other populations, Haitians, you name it, there's many populations that continue to grow that don't speak English, and we still need to support those people too. So I think this is a huge opportunity to ensure that our youth and families are getting the services they need.
And you've been able to observe firsthand at the Y Esperanza's interactions with their clientele, correct?
Yes, they provide a holistic service, which is near and dear to my heart, because as you know, families come in with mental health issues, but they have other things going on too. And finding that out and meeting those needs always helps with the mental health process. So providing holistic services to me is a no-brainer. That's the way we got to go if we want to provide good mental health services.
And Radimus was speaking into this. Currently, Esperanza shares that space with other activities at the Y, correct?
Yes.
Have there ever been any issues, safety issues with Esperanza and sharing that space?
No, because we have a schedule for the building, the 2 buildings that he's licensed in. We have a schedule. It's set up for them to use certain days, and then we have activities and other things that go on for tenants in those same buildings on a schedule. Everything's on a schedule. There's a calendar for all our facilities. So he's on the calendar for Thursdays, right? Is it Thursday? Yeah. He's usually on the calendar for Thursdays at George Street. And then he has an office actually at the Y that he can use anytime he wants.
Do you have any reason to believe that this location, 205 East Philadelphia Street, being used as a medical facility would have negative impacts on the neighborhood or the community at large?
No, not the way they provide their services. They would include the community, the neighborhood, and just, they'll provide a service and a location for people to even gather and meet if they needed to meet services. Yeah.
So in conclusion, would you be fully in support of Esperanza operating out of this location?
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the board?
Just that, understand that our community needs these services, and it's so important to ensure that we meet their community where they are, and that's what they do with these holistic services and mental health care. Just meet people where they are, and that's what we need to do if we want, because of trust, obviously, in most communities, we got to make sure we meet people where they are. So thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, Mr. Santiago. Any questions for him?
Just thank you for your service.
If the board wishes, I can keep my legal arguments very brief to the extent that they're necessary. If you tell me they're not, I can sit down.
Brief sounds good.
I'll make it briefer than brief. Not a lawyer's definition of brief. Okay. So what we need here in this situation are 2 variances. A medical facility is not permitted by right in this zoning district. However, the comprehensive plan, though it may be in draft form, is replete with a mention of needing to ensure access to mental health. In fact, one of the obstacles that it highlights is a care provider shortage and negative perceptions of having a provider within a neighborhood. Specifically, its recommendation is that in these types of neighborhoods that are pedestrian-oriented, exactly what you have in the UN1, that's where these types of facilities belong. That's what we're seeking to promote here in this situation. So with respect to the variance, the hardship and what sets this property apart from others and it's very unique, is the pre-existing non-conforming commercial use. That's very distinct from other properties in the area. To the extent that there was traffic associated with that barbershop commercial enterprise, the expectation would be that the traffic impacts are certainly less based on the pedestrian-oriented traffic generated by these facilities or public transportation. There are a few other items that set it apart as unique. As far as the parking goes, the fact that the building is directly atop the property boundary lines and there is no yard, essentially, in order to make parking spaces, either they need to be able to negotiate a deal with somebody in the surrounding area, or they would have to raise a portion of their building and make parking available on the property, which simply is not viable. So that would be the unnecessary hardship presented in the unique circumstances of this case. I think based on the lack of any opposition and the testimony regarding the neighborhood's reception of that, that particular criterion of a variance is satisfied. It is the minimal relief necessary in this situation, and certainly the hardship referenced with the improvement on the property and the pre-existing nonconformity, which predated the ownership, that's not in any way created by the applicant. So I think fully satisfy all the variance criteria. With a dimensional variance like the parking, it is a reduced standard. The burden is lesser upon the applicant, and I think it would be met regardless of a dimensional, but certainly with a dimensional variance, it gets it over that finish line. So unless there's any further questions for me legally, I will conclude and simply request that the board grant the requested relief, these two variances with respect to the medical facility at this property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question for the folks on site here is anyone who just came in or came in recently here in support or against this case in particular? Okay, thank you.
Let the record reflect that there was no one present to oppose this
I
motion.
think I can favor this application. It seems like it would be an asset
I'm ready to vote.
to the community. Would someone, if we can proceed to a motion, would someone like?
You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. I'll move to approve a variance for an outpatient substance abuse center, use not provided for the UN1 district pursuant to 1304.01.3.07.002, medical facilities for the properties at 203 to 205 East Philadelphia Street in the UN1 zoning district.
I second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the variance to allow the medical facility. Calling the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
I'll move to approve a variance to waive the parking requirements for one space per 250 square feet of gross floor area pursuant to 1304.01.3.07.002D for the property at 203 to 205 East Philadelphia Street.
I second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the variance to waive the requirement for off-street parking. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein?
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
And for the record, Attorney Wilson, we'll be following up with the advertisement, and I'll reach out to your office about that to confirm it was done.
Thank you, Solicitor.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ready to proceed, Mr. Chairman? The second case for this evening is case number 35-2024-Z-V. The applicant is York Realty Partners LLC and represented by Barley Snyder with attorney Stacy McNeil present. The owner of subject property, is the Redevelopment Authority of the City of York, located at 101 South George Street, York, PA. The subject property is located at 550 to 570 West College Avenue in Green Street, which is located in the EC Employment Center District of the City of York. The applicant seeks 4 variances. Applicant seeks the use variance to allow construction of 62 single-family attached new townhomes as defined in the section 1304.01.1.01.002, a use not provided for in the EC district. Applicant also seeks 3-dimensional variances to allow setbacks, smaller than the minimum lot size, another setback for smaller than allowed for the rear setbacks, and smaller side setbacks unauthorized in the EC district. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York, and the planning staff recommend denial of all the variances. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on December 9th, 2024, and by way of unanimous vote, the Planning Commission recommended approval of all requested variances. The record before the board this evening consists of the application itself, a narrative of the project, and a plan of the project. Mr. Chairman.
Ms. McNeil?
Good evening. Stacy McNeil, representing the applicant York Realty Partners. I've handed out to you a pack of exhibits that we will be going through with our testimony this evening. I'm here with Jeffrey Stow of Warehouse and Angelo Manafo, the applicant's representative, who will be presenting testimony this evening. If I may, as just a preface, though, to our request this evening, obviously, you may recall we were in front of you in, I think it was July, I know it was summer, with a variance request for this property. This is the old Densply property, to basically utilize the property for multifamily purposes in conjunction with some other mixed-use purposes. At that time, we had presented to you as applicant's Exhibit 7, what we've now marked as applicant's Exhibit 1, which was basically the overall site. It showed the buildings that are being proposed for the conversion, as well as the proposed, at the time, multifamily new construction, which was 62 townhouse units that were part of the application at the time. As you will hear from the applicant, since the time of their application, they've been able to look further at this, and they have decided to turn the townhouse project into a for-sale project, meaning that they will be separately subdividing each townhouse onto its own lot. And when we do that, we need to amend the application we had presented this summer in terms of the new construction to what under the ordinance is considered single-family attached. And then it also brings into play some dimensional variances. And in particular, the dimensional variances that we are requesting is for 44 of the lots to have variances from your minimum lot size, for 30 of the lots to have variances from rear setbacks. And that is, I think, a slight change from what you have on your agenda. So it's 30 lots with the rear setback variance, not 28. And then 15 of the 20 side lots having the side setback variances. And so I'm going to ask, I guess, first of all, in order to manage our time efficiently, that the board take notice of testimony and decision from the hearing this July as it relates to the use issues that were presented at that time and that may also be appropriate to be considered as it relates to the variances in front of you this evening. And then we will expand on that, of course, with our testimony tonight. So I will call initially to the stand Mr. Jeffrey Stow. And if you could give your name and spell it, please, and give a business address for the record.
Jeff Stow, S-T-O-U-G-H, and I represent the client, and I work for a warehouse at 231 North George Street.
And what generally is your experience?
I am the project civil engineer for warehouse. I have 20 years residential land development experience in York counties and Adams County.
And are you familiar just generally with this redevelopment project?
Yes,
And are you familiar with the property in question?
yes,
So again, this is the site of the former Dentsply facility.
yes.
And I'm looking at moving from applicant's exhibit 1 to applicant's exhibit 2, which is an aerial photograph of the facility and the neighborhood. Is it your understanding that this is an accurate depiction of the property in the neighborhood as it exists today?
Yes, that's correct.
How would you generally describe this neighborhood?
It's many row homes around the area. There is a park right down the road, and it promotes itself for a residential setting, I think.
And where this townhouse project is proposed, is it the portion of the Dentsply site that we see here that is really largely just large asphalt parking areas right now?
Yes, it's all the large parking areas behind the existing Dentsply buildings.
Okay. And moving on to applicant's exhibit 3, we understand that the Dentsply site actually consists of currently multiple tax parcels. I want to say it's at least a dozen tax parcels, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
But for purposes of the application this evening, it's really 2 tax parcels that we're looking at. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So the first one here on applicant's exhibit 3, tax parcel, looks like parcel 2 essentially. What can you tell me generally about this portion of the site?
That would be on the eastern side of the site, and off of Crooks Lane.
Okay. And again, as we can see here, currently it's just asphalt.
Yes, that's
Right.
correct. Yeah.
And then the other parcel is this parcel 1 or parcel 10. What can you tell me about this parcel?
So that parcel's west of Grantley, and that is paved as well and parking.
And so this portion of the project would obviously be only a portion of this particular parcel. Essentially, what we see here is paved portion of the parcel, although not all of the paving, but a portion of that.
Right, correct.
As we discussed over the summer, the existing historic buildings are to remain.
Right.
Okay. How is this property zoned?
EC,
And what, employment center, is that right?
Employment Center. Yes.
Do you know if the employment center district allows for any residential development?
No, it does not.
And I'm going to show you what we've marked as applicant's exhibit 4. And is this just maybe very slightly modified version of the plan that was submitted with this application?
Yes.
Okay. And just generally for the board, can you describe a single-family attached townhouse development proposed on this site?
So each townhouse would have its own lot, as Stacy stated before, and it would be for sale lot.
Okay.
So we don't have lot widths, lot depths, and setback requirements.
And it looks like there's about 26 of these that are proposed on the west side, and the remainder are proposed over on the east side of the property.
Correct.
Okay. Now, when we are looking, because the EC zoning district doesn't provide for any residential uses, what dimensional requirements were you looking at in designing this plan and determining if variances were necessary?
We looked at other use definitions for setbacks for front, rear, and side setback requirements and lot size requirements.
So if I look at the area and bulk requirements in the EC zoning district, it has different area and bulk requirements for different types of uses, like an industrial use or a commercial use, and there's one category that says all other uses.
Correct.
Right? And so that's the category that we're utilizing here because they're not otherwise provided for in that district.
Correct.
Okay. So under this all other uses category, It's not really, these dimensional requirements that we're talking about this evening and asking for relief for aren't really dimensional requirements specifically for single-family attached units.
Correct.
Now, are there other zoning districts in the city that allow for single-family attached units?
Yes.
What would be some of those zoning districts?
CBD is one of your districts, UN1, UN2. There's a couple more on top of that.
So, for example, if these were single-family attached townhomes in the UN1 zoning district, would you need all of the dimensional relief you were asking for?
Some of that, yes.
You wouldn't need the setback relief, would you?
No.
So you might need some minimum lot
Lot
size.
sizes and yes.
If these were attached homes that were proposed in the central business district, would you need any of this dimensional relief?
No.
No. So these lots would be in the central business district, lots that would be adequate.
Correct.
So there's nothing inherently, from a health, safety, welfare standpoint, nothing inherently wrong with the lots as proposed?
No.
Okay. And again, if these townhouses weren't being separately subdivided, there would be no dimensional relief needed, right?
Correct.
Okay. So again, just focusing on this sheet 1 of applicant's exhibit 4 and looking at the three-dimensional types of relief. The first one is this minimum lot size. What is the minimum lot size for all other uses in the employment center district?
2,000 square feet.
Okay, so when we look at this plan, how do we know which lots are 2,000 square feet or greater?
Any lot that does not have a red triangle,
Is 2,000 square feet or greater?
yes.
And how many of those are there?
There are 18.
Okay, so there's a mixture, there's varying sizes of lots that are proposed here. Some are a little less than 2,000 square feet, but others are greater than 2,000 square feet. Do you know what the largest lot size is that you have here?
Just above 3,500 square feet.
Okay, so providing a variety of lot sizes for sale with this project.
Correct.
Okay, the next item is the rear setbacks. How do we know which of these units does not need rear setback relief?
That would be the octagon shape, so any unit that does not have the octagon does not need that relief.
And how many units do not need rear setback reliefs?
32.
Okay. And then finally, the side setback relief. Now, first of all, these are single-family attached homes, so side setbacks only apply at the ends of the buildings,
Correct.
rows of homes, right?
Right.
So how many units here actually have side setbacks?
That'd be 5 out of 20 meet the requirement, and that is the red square, any unit not having the red square.
Okay. I'm going to move to sheet 2, which is a further detail sheet of the west side of this property, so that we can look at this in a little bit more detail. And so here again, does this have the same labeling for these units? The octagons are the rear, right?
Rear setback, so it's the same symbols.
Okay.
The quantities are just applied to this page.
Okay, so looking at this page and looking at the minimum lot sizes, again, the triangles are the units where you are requesting, or the applicant is requesting relief from the minimum lot size. Can you tell me again what some of those lot sizes might be on this part of the project?
So they range approximately to 1,500 square feet to 1,900 square feet.
So is the smallest lot that's proposed just under 1,500 square feet?
Yes.
Okay.
What is that size exactly,
Exactly.
or close enough? 'Cause I thought
I think it's like 19 or 1498 or something. Yeah.
And And is that in part due to the fact that you have some variation in the lot lines? So the lot lines aren't all just parallel lot lines?
Correct. We had to follow the floodplain line, which kind of goes catty-corner across the property.
And then looking at our rear setbacks, those again, the properties where we are looking for rear setbacks are noted with the octagons. What can you tell us a little bit more about these rear setback variance requests?
Some of the lots, we only need a foot, if that, and probably the most we need would be 1 unit at 14 and a half feet because of a dumpster pad that is right on the corner of that building.
So let's start and look at maybe Unit 1, if we could. So Unit 1, and that's the one I think you're talking about with the
Right.
dumpster pad. Unit 1 is a building where you're requesting relief. And again, I think you've indicated the issue here is just that there's a small jog in the rear property line that makes it so it's not meeting that 10 feet.
Correct.
Okay. Then I want to look down here. I see at the bottom of the page, Unit 20 is one of the units that's designated for this relief. Now, can you tell me how far from the rear main building line to the rear property line we have on Lot 20?
Can't read it.
Okay.
I'm sure they can't read it either. 21.45 feet.
Okay, so you've got 21 feet from the rear of the building line to the rear property line on Unit 20. Why are we asking for a variance there?
We desire to have people have an option to put a deck on the back of the house, which is 10 by 10. So that's the extra 10 feet behind the house, and then you have a 10-foot setback off of that. So that's why we need 20 feet in back in case they want to put a deck up.
And so, and looking again, continuing to look at Lot 20 as an example here, this is another one of these lots where the rear property line isn't parallel, and I think you've indicated that's in part due to the fact that you're following an existing U.S. Army Corps of Engineers conservation easement.
Easement and floodplain. as
And the
well.
floodplain.
Yes.
Right. And so the shorter property line is just over 19 feet, and that's where the variance comes into play.
Correct.
So if you had a deck off the back that was 10 feet, that deck would actually be 9 feet from the rear property line, and thus the variance.
Right.
Okay. And as opposed to making every property owner come in when they come to build, we're looking to see if the board could grant some of this relief at this time.
Correct.
Okay. And then moving to the side setbacks, so they are noted with the square. So we can see here the interior units 7 and 8 and 20 and 21. We're looking for that side setback relief.
Correct.
What's the distance between the units in those locations?
All 4 of those units are 5 feet off the middle property line.
And 10 feet between the units?
Correct.
And also, I see on Lot 15, we're looking for that relief as well. And does that just have to do with, again, an unusual configuration of the lot line?
Yes, that's correct.
Turning to sheet 3 of this exhibit, which is the eastern side of the property, I'd like to kind of talk about these issues here as well. So again, the triangles note those properties that you're requesting the minimum lot size relief.
Yes,
And again, we can see that there's some variability in those lot sizes.
correct.
Okay. The octagons, again, are the rear property variance relief. And can you kind of give some idea of, with some of these lots, maybe how far, again, that the rear building line is from the property line?
Well, lots 39 through 50 need an additional 4.5 feet to meet the 20 feet setback. So that's the smallest. The largest is only lot 52, and that's 8.12 feet.
So is it fair to say that as far as the rear variance setbacks, it's fairly small amount of relief that's being sought here?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, looking at the side setback relief, we're seeing, again, those internal units, but also some of the end units here, you're requesting that side setback relief. And what is going on there dimensionally that you're thinking that is necessary?
So lots 38 and 50, the setback right now is 3.5 feet, what it's designed at. Lots 27 and 39 are 7.3 feet. And then the middle lots down the middle, again, are 5 feet, just like the other side.
And while we're looking at this sheet and we have a little bit more detail in front of us, just perhaps you could refresh the recollection of the board in terms of, just generally how these lots are laid out in terms of what they're seeing here for driveways, garages, the building itself, that sort of thing.
So these units were laid out for parking in the garage. This is first floor garage, and then there's a car in the driveway. So it'd be 2 parking spots per unit. And then we had to make the streets large enough for your fire safety and traffic to get through those areas the right way.
Okay. Now, I also want to ask you, while we were looking at this plan, about the other dimensional requirements under the zoning ordinance for all other uses in the EC zoning district. And so first of all, does it comply with all those dimensional requirements, very high level?
On,
Does this project comply with the other EC area and bulk
Yes,
requirements? Okay. So for example, you're required to have a minimum lot width of 20 feet. Do we have that for all of these?
yes,
And there is a maximum building height of 65 feet, a minimum building height of 20 feet. Will it meet those requirements?
yes,
And do they all meet the minimum front setback of 20 feet?
yes,
And they all comply with maximum impervious area of 80%
yes,
and a minimum open space of 20%.
yes,
And as we just saw, they'll all have at least 2 parking spaces.
that's correct.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to look at all at other existing single-family attached lots in the neighborhood?
Yes,
Do you believe that these lot sizes are consistent with those other lots in the neighborhood?
yes,
And do they kind of just vary in size?
yes.
So I'm going to show you what I've marked as applicants Exhibit 5, which are a series of tax maps that I just pulled somewhat randomly from properties surrounding or in the vicinity of the subject property that are single-family attached, existing single-family attached homes. I want to talk about these briefly. So for this first one, it's located at 434 West College Avenue. And per the tax map, does it indicate the size of this lot?
Yes,
What would that be?
1,132 square feet.
Now, when you look at this lot, how would you say this lot compares to the lots that are proposed?
This lot's narrow. It's a little smaller than 20 feet wide. Ours are 20 feet. It is a longer lot because they have parking in the back. We offer parking in the front of the unit, and you don't need to have that as much area there for parking in the back.
So this one maybe doesn't have parking in the back. It's hard to tell from it, but is it
Correct.
fair to say a number of the existing attached home lots in the area do have parking in the rear?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to turn to the next one. This is 314 South Penn Street. And do you know what the size of this lot is?
Yeah, 1,742 square feet.
And does that seem to be about the same size as the other lots in kind of that row?
Yes,
And here, as you had indicated, in this aerial, you can see that a lot of these lots have the parking in the rear.
correct.
And would you believe that this lot as well is a little bit narrower than what's currently proposed, but maybe a little bit longer?
Correct.
Okay. And then I see 519 West College. What's the size of this lot?
1,698 square feet.
And then we have 240 Grantley. And what's the size of this lot?
2,308.
And 646 West College, and what's the size of this lot?
1,829 square feet.
So similar to the variation in lot sizes that's being proposed with this project, do you see similar variation in lot sizes in the existing neighborhood?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Let me just look here. Is there anything else that you would like to offer for the board?
No, I don't.
If the board has any questions, we could take them at this time, but again, Mr. Manafo is going to offer testimony from the applicant. Okay. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, it's Angelo Manafo. That's Angelo. M as in Mary, U, N as in Nancy, A, F as in Frank, O.
And are you here as representative for the applicant?
Yes, I am.
And your business address, please.
It's 108 West Timonium Road, Timonium, Maryland.
Now, were you here and present for a hearing that we had this summer related to this property?
I was.
And do you recall at that time the discussion that we had related to the proposed 62 townhouses?
Yes, I do.
And I'm showing you what we've marked for this hearing is applicant's Exhibit 1. Is it your recollection regarding presenting this exhibit to the zoning hearing board this past summer?
Yes, that's the exhibit we presented.
Now, since this plan was presented to the zoning hearing board in July, what work have you been doing on this project?
We've been making a number of civil engineering refinements to that exact townhouse layout. As you can see before, we had double wide driveways. So now we're adding back some impervious area, green space. We kind of tested all the dimensions of the roads and sidewalks there, completed survey work on the actual land itself to see exactly how much space we had. And then I've just been generally working through our historic site approvals and approvals for the other buildings in the property.
Now, at the time we discussed this with the board this past summer, the plan was to have these townhouses on one single lot, and now that has shifted to having individual for sale lots. What kind of was the rationale reasoning behind that?
Yeah, originally we were thinking that it was possible for either of them to be some form of for sale product, which would have required us to land condo those parcels or do a build to rent type of a model. And just in getting feedback from everyone from the home building community to potential end users to actually even in response to the county's housing study that we've been researching lately, as well as some programs that the state's Department of Community and Economic Development have put out. They're encouraging more of a diversity of residential use types in York County and York City. So at this project, we already have 180 rental offerings in the works in the pipeline, but we didn't have any opportunities for home ownership and that increase in the tax base and attracting a different demographic of catering to more families, et cetera. So we thought that this was a good opportunity in switching to a fee simple for sale product that we could bring a bit more diverse residential options, a bit more consistent with those broader state and regional objectives.
And you understand that then when you switch to those individual for sale types under the city's zoning ordinance, it technically changes the type of use that you're requesting and therefore is an amendment to what you requested over the summer.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's part of the reason you're in front of the board tonight.
Exactly.
And that also then resulted in the need for the dimensional variances that we just discussed.
Yes.
Have any of the physical conditions or circumstances related to this property that you presented to the board as part of your hardship over the summer, has any of that changed in any significant way since our presentation a few months ago?
No, none of those have changed in any significant way. The parcels are still landlocked by the Codorus Creek, its floodplain, the Army Corps of Engineers easement through the levee system and the wooded areas. We continue to cooperate with the county's Economic Alliance to deed over land to accommodate their Greenway Trail project, and we've had further meetings and conversations to refine that exact route and path and the required buffers they would need for landscaping on either side and just to construct that trail. So that's impacted the dimensional aspects of the townhouses as well. And then, of course, we have existing public streets still bordering all sides of the property, which we are not generally proposing to shift or modify, between Grantley, West College, West Street, Cook's House Lane, and then Green Street, which we will be extending a bit to the south to enter that townhome community on the east. And then lastly, just as we continue going through our actual building permit plans that we are developing and submitting to the State Historic Preservation Office in regards to the existing historic buildings on the site that we're going to be restoring, they require an adequate buffer to the south and to the east of them for parking areas and a dual-way drive aisle, which also has to meet all the life safety and emergency access requirements.
So, and I think you alluded to this, but obviously you're proceeding, and I believe you've submitted a land development and subdivision for the conversion project. But ultimately, if this zoning is approved, you'll still need to move through all those processes for
Yes.
the townhouse project as well.
Correct. The land development plan we submitted about a week or so ago was just pertaining to the lofts and some of the miscellaneous commercial spaces in the center of the complex. And at the time, we've just kind of carved out those other two parcels as a future phase that would be an entirely independent land development plan that we are not fully through the design of yet in terms of all the grading and conversations with utility providers, et cetera.
And so you mentioned a number of physical challenges with this property. Do you believe that the variances that are requested are due to a hardship created due to those physical challenges?
No, I do not.
No.
Hardship created by physical challenges or by?
By the physical challenges on the property?
Yes, created by those, not the applicant.
Yeah.
Skipping ahead here.
And do you believe that this project would be reasonably feasible without the requested relief?
No, I think in order to offer this type of for-sale, fee-simple project and make it possible for people to secure a mortgage reasonably, the dimensional relief and the subdivision of individual lots would be needed.
And again, has this hardship been created by the applicant?
No, on that front.
Okay. Do you believe if the board were to grant these variances that there would be any adverse impact to the neighborhood?
No, I think that offering the single-family attached units, these fee-simple lots will be a benefit to the neighborhood and the overall project, as mentioned, to offer that diversity of offerings. And I think it's consistent with the surrounding character of lot sizes and dimensions, as Jeff ran through. There's plenty of examples of that nearby, as well as size and height of the homes themselves, which still haven't been designed, obviously, yet. And historically, most of the homes in the area have been owner-occupied. And also, historically, there were about 54 townhomes located on this exact property, which were sadly demoed to make way for the 470 West College Avenue building, as well as the large parking lot to the east that we're looking to redevelop here. And there were an additional 30 homes demoed from the Cador Street neighborhood where the MLK Park is now situated. So in conjunction, as far as benefit for the surrounding neighborhood and restoring back what was once there, I think it's a good case to be made.
And do you believe that this is the minimum variance that will give you relief?
Yes, I do.
Is there anything else that you would like to offer for the board?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. We welcome any questions that the board might have.
I have a question. So, all things being equal, what do you envision the price point of these new townhomes to be?
Yeah, so we won't end up being the actual builder ourselves or the one selling the end home. We're just looking to kind of get the lots approved and designed, and we'd be selling the lots off. So I don't have an exact price point in mind, but in the early conversations we've started having with builders, they've kind of let us know it'll be their entry-level product, kind of basic product they can build and afford to build and sell to a young startup family.
Thank you.
Was there any consideration, you're asking for relief based on size? And I just did a quick calculation, just looking at the pictures, and reduced each lot, and I'll call it that, by one building. And it almost falls into place where everything, you go down to, what was my number, 57 units instead of 62. So for each of the 5 lots, you drop one, and it almost fits perfectly within the requirements. Is this all economics? I mean,
We have been told that a lot of builders won't look at a project beneath 60 units. And so the market for it would, I think, substantially shrink. I know that seems kind of silly that just a few homes could make a difference, but we have been told that it will open up a possibility for it to be looked at by a wider audience, just because there's economies of scale on the actual construction costs. So the fewer the homes, obviously, it's harder for them to make their numbers work. But and also just the dimension of the home, the 20 by 40 kind of stock. It's kind of your industry standard, most commonly presented townhome, new construction these days. So we had looked at doing 18-footers and other things that really we had been told would not probably get much interest.
well, I was going the other way, making them slightly bigger and making the property slightly bigger.
Yeah, it's kind of that sweet spot in both directions, I believe. Like I've even heard if you go then to more of a 22, then you're entering into more of like a higher end luxury type of a product that we didn't think was a good fit for the area. So just that 20 by 40 and kind of the count we had was how we landed there.
And I guess I would also offer, there's the ability right now to do the 62 townhouses just as one lot, with the multifamily or under the ground condominium. The variances here really are to do the single-family attached fee simple lots to really offer those lots as for sale units. So
It was that shift in learning that if all the townhomes are on a ground condo, then it will make it a lot harder for banks to offer mortgages to people, and a lot harder for people to understand of not fully owning the dirt, outright, without kind of being part of that regime, that we worried that would be a deterrent for buyers and homeowners that want to move in here.
The other question I had for you was the buildings in between the two area.
Yeah.
Is there any thought of what's going on with those? I mean,
No, absolutely. Yeah, we have very, very detailed plans that we're getting ready to bid out. And then after that bidding phase.
My question more is like, are they continuing to be industry, or is it gonna be
No.
like homes in
Yeah,
there?
yeah, no, so, on our site plan, the building at the corner of, West College and Grantley to the east, so to the southeast corner of that main intersection, that's, what we call Building 3 on our plan. That will be 78, loft-style apartments in that building, and then just amenity space for those residents. The Building 3A in the little courtyard space, in that pedestrian area will be another 4 units or potentially some form of a restaurant. But we're designing it preemptively as units. Buildings 4 and 6, which are, they have new addresses of 490 West College Avenue and 492 West College Avenue. That's the one with the sawtooth roof, the triangular kind of roof. Those tally up to over 25,000 square feet of miscellaneous commercial space that we want to keep commercial, and it can be subdivided down to as small as probably about 3,000 square feet per user. And so we're planning on establishing a core and shell renovation plan for those buildings and electrical services that can be subdivided, directly metered, and then look for a variety of local small businesses of all kinds. I think we'd be open to really any type of commercial use there, more or less, whether it's office or fitness or food and beverage or a merchant or a tradesman making something.
Thank you.
Yep.
Folks in the audience, anyone here specifically for this case? One, two, okay, a few folks. I'm not sure if we're ready, but thank you. Are we ready? What's that? Yeah. Oh, did you guys arrive late? Were you sworn in? Okay. Were you sworn in? Stand up and raise your hand and all that stuff? Did you do that? Okay, thanks. Sorry. I don't know what the thing is, so.
So, were you not sworn in? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
The first member of the public would like to speak. Approach the bench, ma'am, and please state your full name and spell it for the record, if you would. And also your address, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Tracy Wright, Traci. Last name Wright, Wright, and I'm the homeowner at 587 West College Avenue, York, PA, 17401.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I have a question. If you're going to build all these houses, how is traffic going to flow? 72 apartments and 62 townhomes. We just have Grantley Avenue, which is basically 2 lanes. College Avenue is 2 lanes, and I'm just wondering how this is going to impact the flow of traffic and so forth.
Would you like to?
So during the land development plan process, there will be traffic studies prepared and submitted to the city, and the city staff will be looking at traffic. It's not necessarily something that we look at in terms of just the zoning relief. So that's something that will be reviewed in detail with the land development submission. Again, this is just this initial zoning phase. Detailed engineered plans would then need to be submitted to the city, which goes through an extensive review, including traffic and the Traffic Safety Committee.
I've lived in my house over 30 years, and, I don't want, this is my home. So I want it to be comfortable for me as well. And I realize that, when there are advancements made, that there's going to be a period of time, but I'm not getting any younger. I don't want a whole lot of,
No.
but thank you.
Thank you. And you're near the corner of Southwest Street and College Avenue, sort of right close to, okay. All right. You guys are both in the same room right now. I would highly encourage you guys to talk and try to stay in contact on how these things are going to go. That would be great if everybody involved in this situation could be good neighbors to each other. So, yeah, thanks.
Would another member of the public like to come to the podium and speak? Thank you, ma'am. We state your name for the record and spell it with your address, please.
My name is Martha Hendricks, Marthahendrix.
And your address, ma'am?
624 West College Avenue.
Thank you.
I had a similar concern that Tracy had as far as how this will affect traffic. If studies are going to be done and further discussions, that's fine. Along with the narrow streets, there is that 90-degree turn at the end of the block, and we've had a lot of issues. The other thing is, one thing that was mentioned, again, just from a long-time resident, I've been there since 1977. As far as historically what was there that was raised for dense supply is in none of our lifetimes. And so what we know is open space and not high residential aspects to the community and the impacts that that's going to have. But we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Any other members of the public available?
Someone else? There you go.
Good evening, Board. My name is Blanda Nace. That's Blandanace. And I serve as multiple hats. First, as the city's Chief Economic Development Officer, or Chief Opportunity Development Officer in the Department of Economic Development. And in that role, I serve as the Executive Director and Secretary of the Redevelopment Authority. And I've been paying attention to the Dentsply property since word first broke, even before word first broke that Dentsply was going to vacate this property pre-COVID. And my vision, personal vision, doing a lot of work with Eric Kirkland, who's always studied Cadorus Street and educated me quite a lot on this neighborhood that existed, this really, really dense area of majority, minority-owned property. And unfortunately, my predecessors, back in 1960, working with the city and the Arthur Cotton Moore Plan, which called for complete elimination of a lot of the city neighborhoods, they fell under that spell of what at that time was a new word called economic development. And the economic development and the elimination of the, quote, slum in that area was the first use, one of the first uses of an eminent domain for the use of economic development. And as they referenced before, about 70 properties were demolished and destroyed, people relocated without a lot of consideration that are current in today's laws. People were given $4,000 and told to go find a place. They were not given assistance. And this whole neighborhood throughout time, and kudos to Mr. Kirkland for bringing back the history and keeping that alive. I have tons of books and printouts and paperwork of this neighborhood that actually existed. In my vision of what I had always wanted to see happen is let's return that to a neighborhood. Let's recreate Cadorus Street. Cadorus Street was wiped off of the city map. There's a little section of it that I believe exists out on the 800 or 900 block of West York, but the rest of it doesn't exist. So it's always been a vision of ours, even from the very beginning of this property, to see this rebuilt as houses for sale. Interesting, and Angelo referred to, there were 47 properties or 53 properties directly on this parking lot area, and I think now the current plan is 30-some. So we are, living to the current standards, creating home ownership opportunities, and we are, the redevelopment authorities, thankful to have found a partner in York Realty Partners to come forward to work with us. And we've been working hand in glove of sorts, working through the issues on the site, doing a lot of subsurface investigations and building testing, lead paint, asbestos, all of that environmental work right now. We're really excited to see this plan come to fruition. You had asked about the the middle area, the in-between area. There are commercial spaces available. I was fortunate enough to recently work with York College. They have students that are in an entrepreneurial program who have started to survey the Salem Square neighborhood and come up, these are freshman students, so they're going to continue this for the next couple of years and try to engage with the residents and develop ideal third places. So what are the third places, where you hang out, where you shop, where you rest, where you meet people. And they're trying to see what the gaps are specifically in that neighborhood now, because to your point, we're excited about tearing down fences. We want to make sure that the commercial space that's developed there is for the environment of the surrounding neighborhood, not just the people that are moving into the new apartments. And to that point, this is designed as workforce housing. This isn't market rate granite it may have granite countertops, but it's not going to be super expensive, pushing the envelope, how much can we get? This is for people who make 80 to 110% of median income. This is the average worker housing, which is really exciting, another point of it. And in the middle in the courtyard, and I'm not sure how clear it is in your sketch, you'll see a lot of connections down to the Cadorus corridor walkway or the proposed beautification in the trail. And again, that's a way to get people from the neighborhood to traverse this site finally, because there's been a 6-foot chain link fence or poked fence around it. And even some of my coworkers that have lived and grew up in that neighborhood, when they walk through that slidey gate, like, wow, I had no idea this was all back here. So the replacement of parking lots that were economic development, we actually have a chance now to kind of return back to what was there at one time. So we're super excited about all aspects of this project. And Angela and I have spent a ton of time looking at new street lights and crosswalk patterns. And it's not just the buildings, it's around the neighborhood, around the buildings as well. So it's going to be important to be walkable and safe. And I remember working with Dentsply when their employees would cross College Avenue, they had trouble with the crosswalks going over across Green Street. And we were trying to figure out traffic calming measures for their shift changes because people fly up and down College Street to get to Grantley. So we're really excited about more lighting, more crosswalks, more pedestrian access, and bringing that from Salem down in. And this homeownership aspect of it just is the cherry on top for everything. So this is a great project. And hope for your support.
Thank you. Mrs. Wright, did you have something else?
I watch a lot of PBS. That's really my thing. And I've seen a lot of cities that have decided to gentrify and improve. But eventually the tax that we're charged, I mean, my house is paid off, but the tax that we're charged eventually gets so large that people cannot afford to live where they, you know, where I raise my 3 children. And it just makes me wonder, like, what's going to happen to my tax base? I mean, I can afford where I live if I retire tomorrow, which I could. But, you know, how is that going to, and I don't mean to sound small-minded and just on me, but, you know, Martha and I have been friends for like 1,000 years, and how is it going to impact her, you know? Social Security, I'm at my last 1 or 2 years of working. How's it going to impact me tomorrow or, you know, when I retire? So if you could speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I was actually kind of curious about that too. How does this break out that property in terms of taxes? We pay a little bit here in New York City.
So this property, per existing city codes, this property will be eligible for either LRTA or RETAP, which are 2 tax abatement programs that the city offers for people to improve their properties. And what those programs do, LRTA is the Local Economic Redevelopment Tax Abatement Program, and RETAP is the Residential Tax Abatement Program. And what that does is makes the owner pay the current taxes, so they don't get a break on what the current taxes are on those parcels. But the new improvement value, what we call the delta, the change in assessment due to the improvement, is phased in over time. So that provides the developer an incentive to build in York, or anybody, and anyone who's listening or watching, if you do anything where you pull a building permit, make sure you fill out the LRTA or RETAP form, because any change in assessment due to the improvement of your value is phased in over 10 years. So your taxes don't immediately go up because you made an improvement. And that's available citywide.
So that means that the current owner of the property will pay exactly what Dent Supply has always paid, or?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
But at the same time, what we want to see from an economic development perspective in York is the improvement of our tax base, our general tax volume. We talk, and I'm going to go off on a soapbox for a second, I apologize, but we talk about millions and millions of dollars of development that have happened in York. But there are things like, and I'm the one that built them, the stadium or the Yorktown, which is tax exempt now because of its ownership, or the Judicial Center. These are government buildings that don't pay taxes. So anytime we get a chance to get a private developer that's going to be privately owning something not owned by an authority or a government entity, that's going to improve our tax base. We need more tax base in order to keep your taxes down. There are more people that are paying. So we're super excited about this kind of thing. And if you think about even the apartments, the assessed value, which is what you pay taxes on, the assessed value of 100, and you're not going to want to hear this, but you know it, the assessed value of 177 apartments is going to be much greater than the assessed value of a big hulking factory building. So by improving the tax base and improving more tax value to our residents, it will help us all. So that's another thing why we're really excited. And we always encourage private development to come in and invest their money and raise our volume of taxability. Hope that helps a little bit.
I was just going to say 62 new taxpayers helps everything.
Correct, absolutely.
That's the easiest way to look at it. So it'll at least keep us even, because I don't like our taxes here either, okay? And I live right downtown here. But 62 new residents will definitely help. I mean, and if we can get more people to buy these types of developments and improve the city, wow, we could start, you know, there's always been the churches, there's always been a lot of things here that don't pay taxes, a lot of nonprofit organizations that don't pay taxes. So more residents that own their property would be great.
But realistically, Mrs. Wright, was it? All of these things, I think, will be good, and I'd argue even necessary, or the tax rates, you know, when the sewer money runs out eventually, and we don't have anything else to sell that valuable, an increased tax base is going to make York livable for all of us. But let's not pretend that, you know, your streets, and I live not far away, right on Market Street, there's going to be more traffic. I don't see any other way. There's going to be more traffic on College Avenue, on West Street, on the streets through our neighborhoods. If there's more people, there's probably going to be more traffic than there is right now, because this huge 17-acre property, you know, that's essentially been empty, sitting empty for several years. Nobody in there except government people and developers thinking about the possibility, but that's not hundreds of people. So there's definitely going to be more, I would think there's going to be more traffic 5, 6, 8 years down the road as this redevelopment progresses than there has been the last 2, 3, 4 years, because the property was like dead. There was nobody living in there, nobody working in there. The difference would be that 30 years ago, 50 years ago, there were hundreds of people working in that property, but they were generating traffic too. Now, it's going to become primarily residential, but it's going to be used for something.
Thanks for-
Instead of falling in on itself, you know, demolition by neglect.
Thanks for asking that question, because I was pretty curious about that, too.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, but I think as you add things up, it's going to be a lot more good than bad. I feel confident about that. But, yeah, you know, we're going to have to, maybe if we could get the state police to come into the city and enforce traffic laws and speed laws a little bit. Maybe that would help.
Stacy, do you have anything else to?
No.
Okay. Any other comments? No, I'm good.
Does board have any comment? I think the public has already gone ahead. Would someone like to make
Okay, in case number 35-2024-Z-V for the residents, or for the property at 550 to 570 West College Avenue, I move to approve a dimensional variance for relief of the minimum lot size pursuant with 1303.14 from 200 square feet to the minimum of 1,400 square feet per non-conforming lot for 44 lots at the address mentioned in the EZ zoning district.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Mr. Nugent to approve the variance for dimensional relief from minimum lot size. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye.
Continuing on with case 35-2024-Z-B, move to approve a dimensional variance for relief from rear setbacks pursuant with 1303.14 from 10 feet to a minimum of 3.4 feet per non-conforming lots for 30 lots at the same address in the EZ zoning district.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Mr. Nugent to approve the variance for dimensional relief for rear setbacks for 30 units. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye.
Continuing on, move to approve a dimensional variance for relief with a minimum side setback pursuant with 1303.14 from 10 feet to a minimum of 5 feet per non-conforming lot for 15 lots, same address in the EZ zoning district.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Mr. Nugent to approve the variance for dimensional relief from side setbacks for 15 units. Calling the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye.
Continuing, move to approve a use variance for the construction of 62 single-family attached new townhouse units, a use not provided in the EC district pursuant with 13.01.01.002 for the lots at 550 to 570 West College Avenue in the EZ zoning district.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Holman and seconded by Mr. Nugent to approve the variance for the construction of 62 single-family attached townhouse units. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Nay.
Klein, nay. Mr. Holman. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Nay.
Jenkins, nay. And Williams, aye.
That's it.
Thanks to all of you for coming.
Thank you.
We're going to take a brief recess.
5, 6, 7 minutes.
You didn't want it? You didn't want it?
No. Yeah.
The way I look at it, it's a move forward. It's going to be waterfront property. If they're really serious about fixing it in the dark, there may be a swing that it goes in. But good. The area is going to like that because they're property value.
bring it back at 8 o'clock, is that okay?
I'm sorry?
8 o'clock, you think?
Let's aim for that.
Oh, hot in here, as usual. Roasted in here. Should've worn my sweater.
I was debating what's warm enough, but I don't want to overdress.
Hey, it's toasty in here today.
So, we're not gonna sell them, obviously, they're gonna live there, they're gonna carry the out of the box, but it's, the values are going up in our area. And when you see things like the barber shop, first case, that place sold out, it's right, it's close to where I live. I mean, his was 200 something, West Market, East Market, East Philadelphia, and I'm on 266. East Market. So I'm in the same area.
Lemonade out of the lemon. We needed those hundreds of jobs.
Yeah.
More than we needed hundreds of.
It's unbelievable prices.
Do you remember? I was trying to remember.
Yeah, they were here. Yeah, they moved. Yeah, they moved. Yeah, so property values are going up. And
Not very knowledgeable. I said,
taxes are killing us.
I described what Densford was years. Angelo said, at its height,
Mill rates are New York and other places. New York is so I lived in
Big area, big factory. Well, they're the number one dental supplier in the world. They're huge.
Was a house in the Navy, got NFC, helped me out.
we used to make.
And we made some money on it. So we sold it from nearly a grand.
How do we make? How do we do that?
They took the peppermint patties. What's next, Frank? I'll tell you.
Our assessed value on our house.
I know. I agree. It's interesting, and the influx of the people who are growing. New York is growing by leaps and bounds, but the people that are coming in, it's an interesting demographic. I mean, I was told that PA has more senior citizens coming in than we do military election because of the great tax breaks. We have more senior citizens coming in than we do younger folks.
I use that
It's an interesting dynamic.
And mill rates are like 19 or something closer, now getting closer to 20 mill rate. And I don't understand the mill rates, but out in Seattle, I think it was like 5-6%. I mean, it was just a lot different now, and we had other taxes. Maybe I think our sales tax was at 6%. It was 7. Property is so expensive, so when you sold property, there's lots of taxes just like sale properties. But
it's better to be on the other side.
It's something difficult. We all learn from every case, but every case is different.
every case is different. Different personalities, different desires, different packages. Sometimes say it that way.
If you get a packet that has everything, it makes the case much easier because you have everything up front. When you're sitting there going through pictures, you're like, what is that?
Where does that connect to that? How many, where does that go?
Those raw.
After the last meeting, we were asking the question. That looks like a kid.
Yeah, when you can't figure out what they are, it's like,
You can't figure out where you're walking. I mean, I sit there and literally spend a couple hours at home going through this package before it's like that. Yeah, I literally analyze it. That's why I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Because it's just like,
trying to figure out where you're going. Where is
and
this?
sometimes, and then we got a package that's coming up, and it's just, there's not a whole lot there, and I'm just like, how are we gonna do that? And employees putting these packages together, because we have multiple sales agreements and stuff like that, and like, why do I do this? And then what am I missing? You didn't get the sales agreement, they had whatever I was supposed to get, because they didn't put the, we don't have any access to it, so.
Yeah, one can go with what they. You eat this piece of cake, you're gonna be just fine. I guarantee you.
May I have just one piece?
Yes, sir.
I just wanna,
Okay.
thank you, I appreciate that. I see you putting that in, but then I
That'd be
was
great.
wasn't
Make all our money.
Yeah. And you gotta take care of that. Yep, no problem. All right, you are welcome.
I think as soon as Frank gets back, he gets back.
Copy.
But I might steal a piece of bread.
Yeah, he just said it should have been. I said, oh, eat that cake, you'll be just fine.
This looks lovely. Thank you so much.
On my calendar, thank you for the invitation.
Henry excited?
I haven't told him that there was bingo yet. I more or less just made the decision for him that he's going. We might be, we might be a little late, depending on when he gets home from work, but,
It's not one of those normal.
okay, perfect.
People will float in and out.
All right, we're looking forward to it. Or I am, he will eventually, I suppose.
Very good, Cena.
Thank you.
Because I've sat up there, you gotta stop. I mean, you can move on, but you don't go up to this street. As he mentioned, he's been 23 years. He's got 23 years of storage.
Oh, okay, so I can have
Part of
this?
this, you can have an agreement.
Yeah, that's what they're reading.
I don't, watch that as the reading.
What on?
I know, but I figured later.
Yeah, if it do that, then I can summarize it, and then I can.
You don't have to say it. So, all right, let's get to this. We got 3 more cases, I think.
Yeah.
3 more, yeah.
Yeah.
Adam just ran out the door to the bathroom.
Folks, we'd like to resume the meeting. We don't want to leave here at 11:30.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to resume.
I was gonna yell for you, but she got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's why I'm your sidekick.
Huh?
I said, that's why I'm your sidekick.
Let's go.
right, may I resume? The next case is number 36-2024-Z-V-SE, excuse me. The applicant is Katharina, and excuse me, ma'am, is it Lowland or Low?
Yeah, it's Katrina.
Oh, Katrina Lowland.
Silent, I know.
Okay, cool. Katrina Lowland, who lives at 322 East King Street, York, PA. The owner is also Katrina. The subject property is located at 322 East King Street. The subject property is in the UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood District. The applicant seeks 4 variances and a special exception. First, the applicant seeks a definitional variance from the requirement that a conversion be from an industrial, institutional, or commercial use, since it is currently a single-family home. Second, the dimensional variance for a multifamily conversion from a different use to include a conversion of a single-family home into 2 units for the property. Third is a variance from the special exception condition the property be vacant for 2 years. Fourth is a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces from the 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit required. And last, the special exception is requested to permit a multifamily conversion from a different use in the UN2 zoning district. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York. The staff recommends denial of all variances in the special exception. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on December 9th, 2024, and by way of a 5-to-1 vote for each request, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the variances and special exception. The record before the board this evening is the application itself, the deed of the property, home layout drawings, and photos of the residents. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't live there.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, no, no, I don't live there. So it is gonna be 2 residential units is what I'm trying to do, though.
2 residents. And what is your current address, ma'am?
My current address is 1398 Sleepy Hollow Road.
And is that York?
York, sorry, yes, York.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that correction.
Would you describe briefly, but taking as much time as you really need, to tell us how you acquired the property and what you acquired? And I think we know what your aim is, what you'd like to do.
Yeah, so the seller of the previous owner, he owns, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how many, but he asked if I was interested in purchasing properties in York City. I said yes. I told him which addresses of the ones that he owned I would be interested in. And so it was, I owned 326 East King and 322 East King. 326 was vacant, so I renovated that, and then in the process, the tenants that I inherited, they ended up having to get evicted. I didn't know, but I was told when I walked the property with one of the inspectors in the city, I guess the previous owner did get fined for it being a, what do you call it, like a rooming, they were renting rooms, and it wasn't supposed to be. I was told that, like, he wasn't doing that from the owner. Anyway, so that tenant left, so then we started the renovation process. And basically we said, because the place is so big, we thought, I mean, it would be better to have 2 units versus 1, so that you could have 2 families, instead of, well, I guess, multiple families living together with no separation. That makes sense. But contractors we hired, we didn't really understand that process. We hired the contractors for those, this reason. They kind of made a ton of mistakes, so, we no longer are using them, and went through the permit process, the HARB hearing, and then now going through this, I guess, because I guess the permits were approved by mistake, and then they revoked them, and then told us we had to do this. So that's the,
When you bought the place, how many, was it a single-family unit, or was it multiple kitchens? Was there a kitchen where let your pictures tell a story that you've made it into 2 apartments, but I wanted to hear if it was 2 apartments before that or just a single family home.
So it was just a single family. The first floor kitchen, that's where it was.
Okay.
There was a bathroom added and then a kitchen added upstairs.
And you did this without getting approval to get 2 units?
Correct.
But there was some confusion to add to your story on,
Yeah, I mean, we asked,
kind of like it was a rooming house, you sell it, whoever owned it before, or whoever was renting it before from the owner was selling units, renting out rooms.
and that was the issue that I honestly, like, because, so then when they were in the process of getting evicted and everybody had to leave, everybody was saying they paid him, but he didn't pay us. So, obviously, like, we felt horrible, but that was the situation from those tenants that we inherited. But this, yeah, so, I mean, since they left, I mean, it has been vacant. I know it's not 2 years, but I want to say it's close to a year, if not a little bit over. I just don't know exactly. Me personally, I'm a mortgage loan officer.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
I'm a loan officer, like residential mortgages.
Now, the diagrams that you submitted are,
I think it's missing 1 page. You don't see the 3rd floor where it has 2 bedrooms in it. If you look at the first diagram, it kind of gives you a compilation of all of them.
right, right. But I'm just surprised because I have never before seen a building built in that 50 or 60-year period, probably between 1870 and 1920, that normally the first and second floor is the same size, and then the 3rd floor is smaller, normally. And your diagram indicates first floor, let's call it full size, and then the 2nd and 3rd floors, maybe 60% or 2/3 the size of the first floor. Is that accurate?
So I took this and then just added like some numbers and things from the appraisal. Like I took this and then the information on the amount of square feet and the appraiser's dimensions, and just made it a little bit bigger and then added where like the kitchen, the living and all of that is now. So this is what I have from the appraisal as far as measurements and stuff, so I'm trying to think. But yeah,
So looking
Yes,
at
no, it
this
is.
first, page that you have here with the aerial view on it. This one?
Yes.
Okay, to the left, is that the front of the building? Or is that a different house?
To the left. So I'm looking at that little marker. So there's also a garage. I don't know if that's, what are you talking about?
So just while we're waiting, what kind of improvements did you make to the property since you owned it?
So we upgraded the electric panel, and then there's also gas heat now. There's 2 furnaces. updated any electric that needed to be done. I mean, there's a
Did you,
lot.
did you do all the painting and all of the replacing of the, looks like you replaced a lot of hardware and a lot of appliances?
Everything is replaced, so. all
Looks
the
like it, yeah,
flooring,
yeah.
All the appliances are new,
Okay.
bathroom fixtures, all of that's new as well.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you did good work on the property.
Yeah, well, I didn't, but yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
You improved it, yeah.
Yeah, a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I had pictures from before, but
Yeah. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Sorry, our discussion up here is that the pictures again, going back to the front entrance is the front door, right? So when you walk through your front door.
Yes.
There's a door immediately to your right that goes into level 1, and then you go straight ahead to the steps, open that door, and it goes up the steps.
Yes. Yes.
That's how it's made?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that follows suit with your diagram here, where you have little doors here and the steps going up, so this is the little causeway area here. I think the confusion may be, to clarify it, if we look at this
Yes,
drawing,
okay.
okay? You have something that, if you're living on the first floor, you have a kitchen, living room, bathroom, bedroom, and the entryway, and it's 29 feet to one point, but then I think you have to add another 20 feet, and then you go upstairs and it's 29 feet. Is the living room, dining room, kitchen area on the first floor a single floor, and there's nothing above it? Because that's what you're kind of telling us on this story, that it's almost like the one.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The front of the house, or the main part of the house, is a 29 by 29 square, basically. And then there's an addition of 20 by 29 in the back that includes the kitchen, living room, and dining room area.
Sorry, I am trying to like,
Is that what it looks like? It looks like it. Okay, I think that's what we're saying.
Okay.
I think we got it figured out. Sorry.
okay.
The reason we're saying that is because there's confusion on what the chairman was saying, and that it just seems like we're missing something on this
On the second floor?
second floor
Yeah.
in the back, and it's not. I think there's just nothing there.
There is nothing, it's just, that's it. Yeah, and sorry, it was a while when I did this, but I did take it from the appraisal and, to match the numbers up. But I just had to make the changes that we did.
So in bottom line, it looks like there was an addition added to the main house on the first floor and nothing to the second floor. And the original house was 29 by 29 by, I don't know, we'll call it whatever the width is, all the way up to the third floor.
I didn't add any.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't build
You
on
didn't
it.
add anything.
I didn't build onto it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It was already there.
Yes.
Like you're saying, it came from the realtor. I got you. Does everybody understand that? I'm with you. Okay.
the appraisal report, yeah.
I'm really more concerned about outside than in the house. I didn't like to be doubting you, but I know what is a lot more common in the houses that were built in that era. I live in one. But I'm more concerned about the parking variance, because on average, some families have one car, a few families or renters have no cars, but on average, I think that 2 apartments are likely to generate more cars than one family, single family. Like I said, it doesn't always play out that way, but sometimes, on average. And I looked at the block twice, Tuesday about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and actually, I took one of 3 or 4 available parking spaces in the middle of the block, which surprised me a little bit, but then I thought, well, daytime, you know, this is normal. There will be a couple of parking spaces, or maybe even 3 or 4. I wonder what it's like at 6 or 7 in the evening. If we went over there now at 8:20 in the evening, do you think we'd find a parking place in the block?
So I did, but there's also a garage in the back that would fit 2 cars.
Right, a 2-car garage,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I guess from what I've seen, maybe, you know, you're right, like it could be different, but typically, I have seen a family have 1 car. Sometimes they don't have one, or like, you know, but they just use the one. That's how it is in my other one, like they just had 1 per family. But, I mean, I have parked there, and I don't live in the city, so I'm like very big on like, is there parking? But, I mean, I have found parking there in the evening. I don't know if it's gonna be like all the time, you know, it's always different, but there is space for 2 cars in this garage for them, plus then I guess if they have 3 cars in one family, maybe, I don't know, then there would also be. But, I mean, it's not huge places. I mean, this is only like 2 bedrooms and then 1. So it shouldn't, I mean, I don't expect there to be 3 people driving. I don't know.
Yeah, what's our requirement for this property?
3.
3, and so that garage is clear?
Well, I couldn't do anything, so I mean, I have
Yeah.
to fix it still.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are 2 parking spaces there, so we need to decide whether 2 parking spaces works or not.
Is there any parking, since we don't have a picture of the garage, can you tell me, is the garage right on 40 Avenue, like right on the thing, or is there any place to park into the garage, like you pull the cars in and there's a mini driveway right in front of the garage?
No, it's just like, right, so there's street and then,
Right there on the road?
yes.
Okay. I was looking for it's 3rd spot right there.
Oh.
And approximately how far from the house is the garage?
Not far, it's at the back of the lot. Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have to, like, go across any, like, streets or anything, I guess, but,
It's on the same property.
yes, I just don't know exactly, like,
Because it looks like you have a little bit of grounds in the back behind.
There is,
That-
yeah.
It's a separate building from the house.
yeah, it's not attached to the house, no.
Right. Do you own any other properties that you're trying to rent, or?
2 doors down, we're fixing the one, so the one is going to the other unit, then we're gonna fix the first floor. But, I mean, we work with it's like the Off the Streets program too, so like that's how we got tenants for the other one. And it's worked for us. I mean, that's kind of why we did, you know, we thought that this would be a better option just because it's so big. But it's bigger than my house on Sleepy Hollow.
Have you separated the utilities at all yet?
Just the gas,
Just the gas?
but we did not touch the electric. As far as, I mean, that's a huge, it would be a huge, because, yeah, so we did not, I mean, we didn't.
If you were
separate that.
approved, would you do that?
I think it would take, just because, I mean, we've had this now vacant for a long time. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like, I would need a little bit of time.
But you would think about changing.
I mean, I would think about it.
Making them 2 separate units, your tenants probably want separate electric bills.
They do, but they also like when it's included in their rent sometimes. Just, you know, sometimes it's hard for them to get it, or, you know, they have to put the deposit or whatever maybe. But when it's included in the rent, then I mean, I haven't, because the other one does not have anything separated, but I bought it as a 2-unit. And so it's like, the rent is all inclusive, so all utilities included. But
I don't have any more questions.
Anyone from the audience here for this case? No? You got anything further? Sir?
I'm ready to make a motion. Okay. I'll move to approve definitional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use, as the property is a single-family home, a conversion not provided for pursuant to 1304.01-1.02.002A for the property located at 322 East King Street in the UN2 zoning district.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Mr. Holman to approve the variance to the definition of multifamily conversion. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein?
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
I'll move to approve a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use to allow a conversion of a single-family home into 2 units for the property at 322 East King Street.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Mr. Holman to approve the dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
I'll move to approve a variance pursuant to 1311.10.d to reduce the number of required parking spaces from 3 off-street parking spaces to 2 for the property at 322 East King Street.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the variance to the required off-street parking spaces. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, nay.
I'll move to approve a variance to waive the special exception provision that the property must have been vacant for 2 years found in section 1311.11C1 for the property located at 322 East King Street.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the variance to waive the special exception provision requiring 2 years vacancy. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
And I'll move to approve a special exception to allow multifamily use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002 for the property located at 322 East King Street.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Ms. Jenkins to approve the special exception to allow the multifamily use. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, nay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, one thing to say, for the record, though, since you seem to be getting into buying properties and fixing them up, don't put the horse before the cart.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Cart before the horse.
Well, yeah, I knew what you meant.
You kind of did with this
Yes.
project.
Yeah. Every mistake is a lesson. And this was a big one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move on. All righty. Next is case number 37-2024, Z-V. The applicant is Sunny Banks of 678 East Market Street, York, PA 17403. The owner is the Movement of York Incorporated, located at the same address. The subject property is also the same address, and it is located in the UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood District. The applicant seeks a use variance to allow for a community food bank as defined in section 1304.01-3-10.002A, a use not provided for in the UN2 zoning district. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York, which denied the variance. The case was heard by the City of York Planning Commission on December 9th, 2024, and by unanimous decision, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the variance. The record before the board this evening is the application itself, deed to the property, a realty transfer tax statement of the value of the property, home layout drawings, and photos of the residents. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Banks?
Yes.
It's pretty self-explanatory to me. Is there anything, any other use made of the building? The first floor appears, and I seem to have misplaced some of the material, but I did study it. Your distribution is done on the first floor.
Yes.
And one day a week?
Yes, on Saturdays.
On Saturdays. And I know you, as I recall, you told the Planning Commission that that you're not renting out the upper floors. So you use it for storage and activities to support your main activity, which is the community food bank and,
Looks pretty straightforward. You want to give us just a general description of what you want to do?
Mainly is just to continue our food pantry. I mean, it's part of what our organization does. We provide transportation to work as well. Just recently started that. We support other food pantries in the city. We support as a soup kitchen with the church. We have a partnership with them. We have a partnership with Union Lutheran with our clothing closet. So, it's more of, we don't try to do too much out of the office, just the food, because it'd be too overwhelming. The spot is just too small for that. So that's why we do a lot of partnerships.
Are you part of Movement York Inc.? Is that, I'm looking at the deed for the property, is that was sold to the movement?
I created the movement.
So that's your
Yeah.
company, organization, nonprofit? Okay. Okay. That was the only question I think I had.
Okay.
So I just was trying to figure out the association there.
You got any questions?
So this is pretty much, this is similar to the catching the city's paperwork or legality up with change that has happened over the past maybe maybe year, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, where.
The pantry's been open 2 years.
I'm sorry?
2 years.
I know, you told, and I was just talking about other cases we've had.
Okay.
Because we frequently, like, once a month on average, we get a case where a house has been converted to 2 apartments without being legal. And then when the property management inspector catches it and sends it to the zoning officer, then we hear it to make it legal. And no, I wasn't implying that you were there 3 or 4 or 5 years. So essentially, this is to make legal the use that has been going on, and probably could help, a big help to the community and the neighborhood.
So far this year, we've done 1 million pounds of food.
I'm sorry?
We've done 1 million pounds of food this year.
So with that being said,
Wait, is there anybody in the audience that's here for or against this case?
That's good.
With that being said, in the case of 37-2024-Z-V-SE for the property at 678 East Market Street, I move to approve a variance for a community food bank as defined in section 1304.01-3.10.002A, a use not provided for in the UN2 zoning district.
And I'll second that. It's been moved by Ms. Jenkins and seconded by Williams to approve the variance allowing a community food bank. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein?
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent?
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins?
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our last case for the evening is number 38-2024-Z-V. The applicant is Four Squares Development, represented by Attorney Driscoll, actually.
Yes.
And the owner is the Redevelopment Authority of York City. The subject property is located at 420 to 446 West Hope Avenue. The subject property is located in the UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood District. The applicant seeks 4 variances. The first is requesting reduction in minimum lot size from 2,000 square feet to 1,200 square feet per lot. The second variance is allowing a greater than maximum total impervious surface area of 75% for the gross lot area of each lot. Third variance sought is relief from the street placement, required to be 20 foot from a sewer lateral on the property. And this is to allow street trees to be placed closer than 20 feet or to reduce the number of trees to 1 per lot. The fourth variance seeks relief from off-street parking ordinance requiring 1.5 spaces, reducing that to 1 space per lot. The application was reviewed by the planning staff of the City of York, and the planning staff recommended denial of the variances. The case was heard by the City Planning Commission on December 9th, 2024, and by unanimous decision, the Planning Commission recommended approval of all the variances. The record before the board this evening is the application itself, an option agreement, the Redevelopment Authority of York and between Redevelopment Authority of York and Four Squares Development, plans of the property, an aerial view of the property, photos of the property, and a letter from the zoning officer regarding Four Squares requirements for the variances. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And you're not Miss Kern?
I am not.
And you're not,
I'm not Devin Myers either.
are they well?
They are well.
Good.
Beth is in Disney World, which we're very happy about. And I was here last week at the Planning Commission, and we decided for consistency, it made sense for me to come again tonight. Both of them had conflicts last week.
And let me test my memory. You are Mika Driscoll.
Yes, very good.
How about that? Now, if I could remember my way home, I'd be in good shape.
Very well done. I'll spell it for the stenographer, M-I-E-K-E. D-R-I-S-C-O-L-L.
Thank you.
And I'm with CGA Law Firm.
Thank you.
And I'll introduce the rest of the team that we have with us. I know it's been a long evening, so for the sake of everybody here, I'll just walk through the main presentation, and we'll use staff as needed to answer questions if that's acceptable to the board. Great, okay. So we have here, Fred Walker and Anthony Moore cannot be with us tonight from Foursquare, but Justin Heim is the construction manager, and he is here this evening. We also have Todd Curl, the project manager from RGS Associate on the engineering team, and Frank Dittenhefer and Patrick Neff from Murphy and Dittenhefer. They've all been working diligently on the project. To give you a little bit of background, Foursquare's development has been working with the RDA. As you know, there's an option agreement now, and it's been a number of months that they've been working in development. This is somewhat of an insular city, full city block that's currently vacant for the most part. It's 14 lots that have been used as community gardens. So it looks like there's structures on, when you look at the aerial, but those are a couple of trailers and an open pavilion. So it's not really improved at this point in time. But there's 14 empty lots. They don't abut any major streets. Those are all essentially alleyways that they abut where they're located. But they're looking to develop and maximize the number of residential, low-income, and veteran-focused units that they can. They looked at a lot of multifamily that were multiple layers, and it just needed too much zoning approval from you to be able to do that. So they've been working to maximize the space, but have the least amount of variances and exceptions that are needed from this board. So the proposal in front of you is for 20 units that will, so the property will be re-subdivided into 20 separate units that will be single-family attached, which is allowed in the UN2 district. And they will likely not be sold for individual sale, unlike what we heard earlier, but managed by the developer as rental units. And they will be focused on low income. They did receive ARPA monies from through the city. And so they're focused on low income, 75% of API, and 25% of the units will be dedicated to veterans. So that's what the use is there. So to get creative in the space, this is a unique property, so to get creative in the space, we need a few variances from you, and that's why we're here tonight. The first that we're requesting is a dimensional variance from lot size. This is not a land development plan. What you see on Exhibit B is probably the most informative exhibit. It has two versions because we're not at final land development plan yet. So there's two proposals. The one that we are most focused on now and working with staff is the one that actually has 2 parking spaces. We're still going to ask for the parking variance, and I'll get to that. So it will be 20 units of varying size. We don't know the exact proposed size of each individual lot, but we do know they will range between 1,200 and 2,000 square feet. And your ordinance requires a minimum of 2,000 square feet. So we will need a dimensional variance for each of those 20 lots. And the second variance is for parking. Two spaces are required. You see there on Exhibit B, 2 spaces are preferred by the city. We can get 2 spaces on each. The result of that is there's less green space and there's more impervious coverage, which we're also asking for a variance for. The concern if we have 1 space, even though it creates more green space and less impervious coverage, is that occupants will park on the grass anyway, and then it will be the city's burden to ticket them and the family's burden to deal with the tickets. And that's not necessarily a situation we want to create. But we would like the flexibility as we come into final planning to have less than 2 parking spots, maybe not for every unit, or perhaps in the end, everyone will agree that the one space is sufficient, but we're going to ask for that variance from you tonight. We are also asking for a variance regarding tree placement. It's a little bit unique here because on your current ordinance, we need 1 tree per front lot and a front yard, that is at least 20 feet from a sewer. It's virtually impossible to do that. The front doors are facing inward. So to be able to place a tree in each front yard and avoid the sewer lines is really not feasible with the space that we're dealing with. So we're proposing to move some trees, to the rear and to have some flexibility with tree placement so that we can maximize the green space and not interfere with sewer lines. So that is the the third variance. And, and I sort of glanced over impervious. Your zoning ordinance requires 75% or less to be impervious, sort of similar to the lot size. The actual impervious area of each individual lot is going to vary a little, but we know that we will be over 75% for the project as a whole. So we're asking for a variance to deal with each individual lot that would be in excess of 75%. I'm going to stop there and ask if you have any questions and if our design team can help answer any questions for you specifically about the unique challenges with this property.
Well-needed project.
Yes, agreed, yeah. And I think that's why it is where it is and why it received the funding that it did. And I think, Blanda would tell you if you asked him a little bit about why the RDA is excited about it and an additional conversations they're having with Four Squares Development about replicating this in the area and finding nearby lots that can be used for commercial purposes that are complementary.
Awesome. I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay.
Reluctantly, I'm going to admit that I spoke against city council. I questioned city council going ahead with $3 million of ARPA funds when there was so little known about what was going to be done. I was wrong that night. I think they needed to place the money to commit the funds, or they might have been lost. I like the change of plan from stacking up 54 small units to livable dwellings, and I think they're all 3-bedroom.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen too often. And they look as though, I don't think there are any 8 by 10-foot bedrooms. They're not the 25-foot bedrooms that my grandmother had in her farmhouse, but they don't make that much anymore. I have a very good feeling about this. It may have had a little bit of an unorthodox start and path to get here, but there have been some good people working on it, and I like it.
Thank you.
I think we all do. Having said that, it would be nice in a way if we had so much green space that we could leave a piece of it there. But as I recall, there is a fairly large park just 2 or 3 blocks away.
That's correct.
So it's not quite as drastic a change as it could be. Would someone like to make a motion here?
Do you guys, is there any other testimony or?
Oh,
We are happy to put it on if you would like us to, but we understand we've been here for a good while this evening, so if you don't have questions, we can.
I have one question before the
Sure.
motion. 20 units, I mean, again, it goes back, I asked the same kind of question before. 20 units economically, that's what you see it has to be. I mean, you could make it 18 units and have a little more green space. I mean, the chairman said it too, green space is kind of cool, and I really think one parking lot with a fence, so they can't park into the grass could work, something to throw that out. But I just was curious, like, 18 units won't work, 20 units is more economically, I know it's about dollars, it always is, but if somebody has.
But it's also about maximizing the number of affordable housing units.
Okay,
It's more about that.
okay. That's a good answer. I'll just shut up.
Touche.
Thank you. Understood. All right. I'm going to make a motion to approve variance pursuant to 1303.11.c, reducing the minimum lot area from 2,000 square feet to no less than 1,200 square feet for the properties at 420 to 446 West Hope Avenue in the UN2 zoning district.
I'll second that. It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Williams to approve the variance for a minimum lot area. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
I'll move to approve a variance for an increase in the maximum of impervious surface coverage as defined in 1303.12.c to an amount greater than 75% of gross lot area for the properties located at 420 to 446 West Hope Avenue.
Second.
It's been moved by, and I want to add a comment at this, and this is the right time for it. I moved from a 29-acre farm into the city. I could park 8 vehicles at my home, my farm, on gravel. I don't know why it seems like it's only a choice between impervious surface or gravel. I don't know why we're afraid of gravel, which is pervious, and it doesn't turn to mud. I think I've got a campaign platform there. It's been moved and seconded to approve the variance for the total impervious surface. Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
Okay. I'll move to approve a variance pursuant to 1305.08.c.3, allowing street tree placement to be greater than 20 feet from a sewer lateral for the properties located at 420 to 446 West Hope Avenue.
I'll second that. It's been moved by Mr. Nugent and seconded by Williams to approve the variance regarding street tree placement.
And may I think he said greater, but I think he meant less.
He did, that was my mistake in when I wrote
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, should be less than, yes.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
We're okay?
Yeah.
Calling for the vote, Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
And I'm going to move to approve a variance from the off-street parking requirements to allow 1 parking space per unit, a reduction from 1304.01.1.01.002.d, which requires 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit for the properties located at 420 to 446 West Hope Avenue.
I second.
Question. You're moving for approval of a variance to reduce the parking.
To 1 space from 1.5 spaces?
Yes.
Yep. So they don't need 1.5 spaces, they only need one space instead of having to.
But that's a minimum, so you would still be able to, I mean, there was a whole lot of discussion between impervious surface and parking spaces, and much of it tended towards 2 spaces, but now 1.5, and 1.5 is, I mean, there's not much off-street parking. So I won't oppose your motion, but it doesn't limit your development to 1
Correct.
space per unit.
Correct.
Okay, that's.
They just want this option.
That's correct.
I'm sorry?
They just want the option. They're looking at 2
Okay,
parking spots,
so-
but they have an option that
Yeah.
they may come
Great.
back later in their development of the units themselves, that, hey, maybe we can put a garage in it, and you'll have actually 2 units or whatever they're gonna do.
Yeah. Okay, calling for the vote. Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, aye. Mr. Nugent.
Aye.
Nugent, aye. Mr. Holman.
Aye.
Holman, aye. Ms. Jenkins.
Aye.
Jenkins, aye. And Williams, aye.
Thank you.
Thanks for making it happen.
And thank you all.
No, it's right. I didn't know where this place was. It's right at the others.
Mr. Chairman, are we adjourned?
We are adjourned. Thank you. I know how to start this thing, but I don't know how to
She
stop
got
it.
me, she saved us. It's all right.